Welcome to the Office on Violence Against Women, Fiscal Year 22, Improving Criminal Justice Responses to Domestic Violence, Dating Violence, Sexual Assault, and Stalking Grant Program, or ICJR, formerly known as Arrest Program, Pre-Application Webinar for New Applicants. This webinar will be presented by the OVW team, Aisha Battle, Amanda Wilson, LaShonda Beasley, and Jason Petrie. Although we will not review every page and section of the solicitation, there have been several important changes to the fiscal year 22 ICJR solicitation, and we want to make sure that you are aware of those changes. Please put any questions that may arise for you in the chat box. We will be answering questions at the end of the presentation. We highly encourage you to read the solicitation in its entirety before beginning your application. First thing to know is hopefully you found us because you have already downloaded the solicitation. For information on how to apply, we have provided you with a link in this slide, www.justice.gov/how-apply. Be sure to use that link. It has valuable tools such as links to the solicitation companion guide and resources for your application. We have also provided the ICJR solicitation link as well, which is found under www.justice.gov/OVW. Go to OVW Grants Program and then open solicitation. The most important thing you should do before applying is to read the ICJR solicitation in its entirety, from the beginning to the end. We can't stress this enough. The fiscal year 22 solicitation has a few important changes from previous years. We also be prepared to hear us repeat several things during this webinar that applicants oftentimes overlook. As we move through the slides, you will see page numbers references that correspond to the pages of the solicitation. The ICJR program is the largest and one of the oldest discretionary grant programs at the Office on Violence Against Women. Over the years, the ICJR program has changed names, but the purpose has always stayed the same. It encourages states, local and tribal governments and courts to treat domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking as serious violations of criminal law, requiring the coordinated involvement of the entire criminal justice system. In fiscal year 22, OVW will accept applications from new applicants, meaning those who have never received funding under the ICJR program or who had previous funding that expired more than 12 months ago, and continuation applicants who with existing or recently closed within the last 12 months award. Grant recipients who received new or continuation funding under the ICJR program for 36 months in fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 are not eligible to apply for funding. This information is not in the solicitation, but it still applies. All awards are subject to the availability of appropriated funds and any modifications or additional requirements that may be imposed by law. There is no guarantee that funds will be available in the future. Therefore, OVW encourages you to develop a plan to sustain project activities if federal funds through the ICJR program were no longer available. The grant award period is 48 months. There are a couple of common mistakes made by applicants regarding the award period. First, the budget must reflect 48 months of project activity. Second, the total estimated funding block 15 on the SF 424 does not reflect 48 months. Generally, the award period will start on October 1st, 2022. Carefully consider the resources needed to successfully implement the proposed project and present a realistic budget that accurately reflects project costs and when each phase of the project will begin. Example, are you able to hire someone on October 1st, or will it take a few months? Also consider the various partners associated with your application and their resources. Keep in mind that your service area will be the entire area that your project proposed will serve. If you propose to implement a project or a city, county, or multiple counties, be sure to use the population information for the entire service area. A service area population up to 400,000 is eligible to apply for up to $500,000. A service area population of 401 to 700,000 is eligible to apply for up to $750,000. A service area population of 701 is eligible to apply for up to $1 million. And a statewide project is eligible to apply for up to $1 million, regardless of population. Understand, OVW has the discretion to award grants for greater or lesser amount than requested and to negotiate the scope of work and budget with applicants prior to award. A 3 to 12 month planning phase with OVW training and technical assistance provider will be required for new applicants selected for an award. During the planning phase, new applicants will be required to complete required training, identify a dedicated project coordinator, create, enhance a coordinated community response with project partners, community stakeholders, identify evidence-based practices and/or tools that will be implemented, submit a logic model outlining community goals to OVW for approval. New applicants seeking to address Purpose Area 22 lethality or risk assessment tools will be required to complete a community assessment before selecting a lethality or risk assessment for their community. Grant funds may be used to support personnel time for project activities during the planning phase. In fiscal year 22, OVW will give consideration to applicants that meaningfully address one or more of the following statutory purpose areas, which are detailed in the solicitation. When considering whether an applicant successfully addresses one or more of these purpose areas, OVW evaluates the proposed project objectives and activities and budgets. Activities supported by the ICJR program are determined by statute and federal regulations. Applicants must address at least one statutory purpose area listed on page 5 through 7 of the solicitation. The ICJR solicitation changed the purpose areas that victim service providers and coalitions can apply to. If you are a continuation applicant that is doing work under a purpose area that is open to government and court applicants only, your government partner will now be the lead applicant, and you as a victim service provider coalition will be the project partner. Victim service providers and coalitions applying as a lead applicant may seek funding to address purpose areas 5, 10, and 17 only. Although not required, there are 4 statutory priority areas defined by legislation that applicants can address. In fiscal year 2022, applications submitted by states and Indian tribal governments, states and local courts, including juvenile courts and units of local government, as well as victim service providers and coalitions addressing one or more statutory priorities will receive 1 additional point during the programmatic review. OVW does not fund activities that jeopardize victim safety, deter or prevent physical or emotional healing for victims, or allow offenders to escape responsibility for their actions. Information on activities that compromise victim safety and recovery and undermine offender accountability can be found in the Solicitation Companion Guide located on the OVW website, or included by linking on the page 8 of the solicitation. Applications that propose any activities that compromise victim safety and recovery or undermine offender accountability may receive a deduction in points during the review process or may be eliminated from consideration entirely. On page 8 of the solicitation, we have listed 6 activities that have been found to be out of scope for the ICJR program. Applications that propose activities that are deemed to be substantially out of scope may receive a deduction in points during the review process or may be eliminated from the consideration entirely. ICJR funds can only be used to serve adolescents and adult victims age 11 and older. Funds cannot be used to serve victims under the age of 11. Pursuant to 34 USC section 10461C, the following entities are eligible to apply for the ICJR program: states, Indian tribal governments, state, local, tribal, and territorial courts, including juvenile courts, units of local government, state, tribal, and territorial domestic violence and sexual assault coalitions, victim service providers. The solicitation has additional information and definitions for each of the eligible applicants. Make sure you read eligibility information on page 11 and 12 of the solicitation. The Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act of 2013 changed the definition of unit of local government, making police departments, pretrial service agencies, district or city attorney's office, sheriff's departments, parole and probation departments, and universities non-eligible entities to apply as a lead applicant. These entities cannot be the lead applicant because they are not units of local government for the purpose of this program, nor are they considered state, Indian tribal governments, or state, local, tribal, or territorial courts. Per the ICJR solicitation, the definition of unit of local government is set forth in 34 USC section 12291A40 and is any city, county, township, town, borough, parish, village, or other general purpose political subdivision of a state. Applications from typically non-eligible entities that want to assert unit of your local government status under 34 USC 12291A40 must include in their application proof of such status. If these agencies or organizations do not meet the definition of unit of local government, they are not eligible to apply directly for funding, but may assume a partner role and responsibility for the development and implementation of the project. They must apply through a state, local, territorial court, and a Indian tribal government or a unit of local government. Non-eligible entities can fill out the application, assume responsibility for the development and implementation of the project, but it must be submitted through your state, Indian tribal government, state, local, tribal, territorial court, including juvenile court, or a unit of local government. Failure to apply with this will disqualify your application from the review process. As a victim service provider, coalition lead applicant, you are required to partner with a state, Indian tribal government, or unit of local government, and must submit with your application a certification of eligibility as described on page 13 and 14 of the solicitation, signed by the Chief Executive Officer of the government partner or government agency letterhead. Victim service providers must show in the application a history of working with survivors to a level supported by community stakeholders. Coalitions are statutorily defined and recognized organizations. An entity that is a nonprofit organization requirement. An entity that is eligible for this program based on its statute as a nonprofit organization must be an organization that is described in section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 and is exempt from taxation under section 501A of that code. See 34 USC section 12291 B16 B1. OVW cannot make an award to any nonprofit organization that does not submit a 501c3 determination letter from the Internal Revenue Services. And I'll hand it over to, OVW will require that each applicant develop an MOU with its project partners if awarded funds. Applicants that are victim service providers are required to engage in a formal collaboration with a state, unit of local government, tribal government, as well as any specific governmental organization that are necessary for the implementation of the proposed project. Likewise, governmental organizations are required to partner with a community-based victim service provider, a nonprofit, and or state recognized domestic violence or sexual assault coalition. If your proposal addresses a culturally specific or underserved population, a population-specific organization must be included in your MOU. Applicants must also include other governmental organizations that are necessary for the implementation of your project. You must also involve the mandatory partners in the development and implementation of your project. If you fail to include the mandatory partners, your application will be removed from further consideration. And I'll hand it over to my colleague, Jason, to continue.
The ICJR program has two certification requirements, the certification of eligibility and HIV certification. In addition to meeting the eligible entity requirements to apply for funding, all applicants must certify that their laws or official policies meet the ICJR statutory requirements detailed in 34 USC section 10461C. In order to receive funding through the ICJR program, all certification and other eligibility related documents must be current, developed in accordance with the FY22 ICJR solicitation, signed by the Chief Executive of the state, Indian tribal government, unit of local government, or court, and submitted at the time of the application. The certification of eligibility signatory is based on the service area of the proposed project. For example, if you are proposing a statewide project, the governor would likely be the chief executive to sign. A chief judge or circuit court administrator for a court applicant, and a mayor or county executive or tribal chairman for a unit of local government or Indian tribal government. Instructions and sample certification of eligibility letters are on the Resources for Applicants page under the Program Specific Resources heading on OVW's website. Applicants whose submissions do not meet all of the eligibility requirements at the time of the application deadline will not be considered for funding. Submission of state, tribal, territorial, and/or local statutes, HIV letters, or laws and policies in lieu of a letter with proper certification signed by the chief executive will not satisfy these statutory requirements. Please note, applicants will not be contacted by OVW to correct certification letters. States and units of local government who receive ICJR funding must meet the requirements for HIV testing of offenders. If you are not in compliance, 5% of awarded funds will be withheld. Tribes, victim service providers, and coalition applicants are exempt from the HIV requirement and do not have to submit any documentation. Please note that applicants will not be contacted by OVW to correct certification letters. The ICJR program requires the following 5 documents be submitted. 1, the proposal narrative. The proposal narrative can be no more than 20 pages. Any pages after page 20 will not be reviewed for purposes of peer review. Number 2, the budget detail worksheet and narrative. The award period is 48 months, so please make sure your budget detail worksheet and budget narrative reflect 48 months. Number 3, the data requested with application, formerly known as the summary data sheet. Number 4, a partnership agreement. In the rare circumstances that a court is prohibited from entering into a partnership agreement, a letter of commitment may be submitted. And number 5, the certification of eligibility letter must be submitted along with the application. And you can find a sample certification of eligibility letter on the OVW website under the Resources for Applicants page, and then under the Program Specific Resources heading. The data requested with application is 1 to 4 pages in length and may be single or double spaced and does not count towards the 20-page limit for the project narrative. Please provide the start and end date of the next state or tribal legislative session in the data requested with the application. The proposal abstract should be no more than 2 pages and is double spaced. It provides a short and accurate summary of the proposed project, including who will be involved with the proposed project, what will be done as primary activities, what products will be produced, the service area where the proposed project will take place, and who will be impacted by the proposed project. Applicants should not summarize past accomplishments in this section. The proposal narrative may not exceed 20 pages in length. It is double spaced and is comprised of the following 3 sections. Number 1, the purpose of your application. 2, what will be done. And 3, who will implement the project. Please ensure you are addressing what the solicitation requests in the correct sections. Please stay within the budget caps and remember to include items listed in the mandatory program requirements section. Be sure your budget reflects 48 months. The budget should not contain any items that are not detailed in the project narrative. A sample budget detail worksheet is available on the Resources for Applicants page. Grantees under this program may not issue a solicitation or request for proposals to redistribute these funds after receiving an award. The next couple of slides, we're going to focus on aspects of your application that relate to the documents that our financial team, the Grants Financial Management Division, or GFMD, reviews. More specifically, we will discuss some items that GFMD has identified from prior year applications that could help with expediting our review process. So for today, we're going to highlight certain aspects of the pre-award risk assessment and provide you a link to a detailed webinar on how to develop the budget that will be included in your application. The first things we'll highlight are the items identified in the budget, in the data requested with application, which is completed by all applicants. Specifically, 3 items we would like to discuss are the nonprofit organization requirement, the single audit response, and the IRS 3-step safe harbor procedure. If you're an eligible victim service provider, you're required to submit a determination letter from the IRS recognizing your tax-exempt status. OVW cannot make an award to any nonprofit organization that does not submit a 501c3 determination letter. We highlight this specifically because applicants are not including this as part of their application. This further delays our review. Please ensure this document is included if applicable. OVW requests all applicants provide a statement as to whether they have expended $750,000 or more in federal funds during their last fiscal year. If your organization has, then you meet the single audit threshold and will need to notify OVW in the data requested with application, specifically question number 3, and include the end date of your last fiscal year. GFMD is finding that applicants do not always include this information and leave out whether they have met the threshold or do not provide the end date of the last fiscal year. Another item we would like to highlight from the solicitation is specifically for nonprofit organizations. If you use the IRS 3-step safe harbor procedure to determine your executive's compensation, you must reference the additional required information section that provides the required disclosure letter. There are 4 parts to the disclosure letter that must be provided to OVW in order to comply with this requirement. The sample letter outlines all 4 parts of the disclosure, so please be sure to follow the sample and provide a response to each of the 4 pieces. The sample letter can be found on the OVW website and is linked on page 21 of the solicitation. The next item we'd like to discuss are the financial accounting practices, which assists GFMD during their pre-award risk assessment review for all applications. Each applicant must prepare a response to all 11 questions. Each question has multiple parts. We've noticed from prior years that applicants do not always fully answer all parts of the questions, which in turn requires GFMD to reach out to the applicant, which may delay recommendations. Some of the most common issues that we've encountered have been, for example, question number 2, where the applicant indicates that they do indeed have internal policies, but they do not provide a brief list of topics covered in the policies and procedures. Another example of incomplete responses includes question number 3, where the applicant does not provide a brief summary of the organization's process for tracking expenditures, and more specifically, whether or not it tracks budgeted versus actual expenditures. These are just a few examples, but please make sure you read each piece of each question and provide a full and comprehensive response. There are 5 unallowable activities that are applicable to almost all OVW programs. Lobbying, except with explicit statutory authorization, fundraising, purchase of real property, physical modifications to buildings, including minor renovations like painting, carpeting, or security cameras, construction, and some costs are only approved on a case-by-case basis, so please make sure you provide lots of detail around this need. If you propose using funds to purchase uniforms, weapons, and/or automobiles, please ensure you provide a detailed description of the need as it relates to your project, as well as the cost. We will now quickly highlight some resources that are available and should be used as you create the budget to be submitted with the application. Over the last year, GFMD has worked to develop a detailed webinar presentation to assist applicants in developing a budget to be submitted with their OVW applications. They want to help reduce any challenges you may face with the budget and make it clear what they look for when reviewing the budgets. This webinar provides some insight as to what OVW financial staff considers during their review. The webinar can be found under the Budget Information section on the OVW Resources for Applicants page. Additionally, the Just Grants page has resources on completing the web-based budget in Just Grants. Next up is the Uniform Guidance, which can be found at 2 CFR Part 200. Another resource is the DOJ Grants Financial Guide, as well as the program-specific solicitation. If you need assistance finding these resources, please contact the GFMD Help Desk. We know this can be a lot of information to process, so if you have any questions about the GFMD information discussed, please feel free to contact the GFMD Help Desk at 888-514-8556 or by email at ovw.gfmd@usdoj.gov. And I will now, hold on, mandatory program requirements. Applicants are required to set aside $20,000 total for training and technical assistance for the lead applicant and project partners for 48 months. TTA funds must be shared with project partners, and applicants from Alaska, Hawaii, or any U.S. territory are required to set aside $40,000 for the 48-month project period. Okay, now I will turn it over to Amanda Wilson, who will finish us off.
So, partnership agreement. New this year, all former partnerships must be documented in the form of a partnership agreement or letter of commitment at the time of application. The partnership agreement is in replacement of the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, only at the time of application. Non-core applicants will be required to develop and submit an executed MOU by the end of the first year of the project period. Lead court applicants may submit a letter of commitment in lieu of an MOU. See Memorandum of Understanding section for additional information on the partnership agreement requirements. Court lead applicants who are precluded from entering into a partnership agreement may submit an LOC or letter of commitment at the time of application. For purposes of this solicitation, the partnership agreement is a document containing a collaborative agreement between the applicant and its partners, in which the lead applicant or other organizations collaborate for the purpose of an application. How to apply. Important deadline and due dates. Please read this section of the solicitation carefully. It covers in detail the registration process and explains OVW's policy for applicants without internet access, on duplicate applications, experiencing unforeseen technical issues, late submissions, and extraordinary natural or man-made disasters. New submission process. The new submission process is broken down into two parts. We will detail the process over the next several slides. Information about IT support for either process can be found on page 2 of the solicitation. So how to apply? As we discussed, it will be a two-step process, and application materials will be submitted in grants.gov and Just Grants. We recommend starting the application process as soon as possible to allow for furthering progress in the Just Grant system. As I said earlier, read the solicitation carefully to understand all the steps required to submit an application and the time needed to complete those steps. Some steps, such as obtaining a DUNS number or registering for a SAM number or grants.gov, may take several days to complete. Today is April 4th, so as of today, the federal government will stop using the DUNS number and move to the new Unique Entity ID, or SAM. The Unique Entity ID is a 12-character alphanumeric value, and once issued, will not change. Entities that are currently registered in SAM.gov already have a Unique Entity ID, which can be viewed at SAM.gov. And after today, you do not need to obtain a DUNS number. Simply register with SAM.gov and you will be provided an UEI. We recommend applicants begin these processes as soon as possible, but no later than the date suggested in the solicitation. Grants.gov. Applicants must complete the application for federal assistance, the SF 424, in grants.gov. The specific information required for this step is included in the information to complete the application for federal assistance, SF 424 section of the solicitation. Applicants must also complete and submit the disclosure of lobbying activities, the SFLLL, in grants.gov. After submitting these forms, the applicant will receive an email notification from Just Grants to complete the rest of the application in Just Grants. If the applicant is a new user in Just Grants, the email will include instructions on registering for Just Grants. Applicants will submit the full application, including attachments, in Just Grants. Now, more about Just Grants. If you applied for OVW funding in prior years, you will notice some significant changes in the application process. In the new Just Grants system, applicants will enter some application information directly into text boxes in the system, will fill out web-based forms, and upload some documents as attachments. We have included the following major elements of the application as examples of what applicants will submit in Just Grants. The proposal abstract will be entered in a text box. The data requested with application will consist of responses in questions to a survey. The proposal narrative will be uploaded as an attachment. The budget worksheet and budget narrative will be entered into a web-based form. The memorandum of understanding or letters of commitment will be uploaded as an attachment. In addition to these major elements, other documentation will be required for all applicants or when applicable. Read the solicitation carefully for a full description of all items required within a specific application. In Just Grants, each applying entity will have an issued entity administrator who is responsible for managing entity-level information and assigning roles in the system. The entity administrator is also the eBiz POC designated in SAM.gov. For more information on registering with Just Grants, please refer to the website justgrants.usdoj.gov. Within 24 hours of Just Grants receiving your application from grants.gov, the user submitting the application in grants.gov and SAM eBiz POC will receive an email to register for a Just Grants account. The email is from DOJ's Secure User Management System, DIAMD, D-I-A-M-D, and will include instructions on how to create an account. To ensure that you receive these emails and that you have not flagged them as spam, we recommend adding diamond-no reply at usdoj.gov to the trusted sender list in your email. The eBiz POC at the applicant organization serves as the entity administrator and must log in to Just Grants to confirm the entity's profile and add users. The user submitting the application in grants.gov serves as the application submitter. Within minutes of completing your Just Grants account registration, the application submitter and the eBiz POC or the entity administrator users will receive an email from Just Grants with a link to the application started in grants.gov. Alternatively, the applicant submitter can log into Just Grants and locate your pending application, numeric digits, excluding the word grant, of the grants.gov tracking number in your task list on the home or landing page. The entity administrator will need to log in to Just Grants to review the authorized representatives associated with the entity. If an authorized representative needs to be invited, the entity administrator will need to invite the individual to receive a Just Grants account. Note that an organization can have more than one authorized representative, as long as those individuals have documented authority to sign an agreement with the federal government. These actions are required before an application can be submitted. Within minutes of being invited as an authorized representative, the individual will receive an email from diamond-no reply at usdoj.gov with instructions on how to create an account in DOJ's secure user management system. Once the authorized representative receives the email and completes the steps to create an account, the authorized representative will be available in Just Grants. The application submitter will need to complete the application by entering data into web-based forms, uploading attachments, and accepting assurances and certifications. The application submitter will also need to select the authorized representative. Once all sections are completed, the application submitter will submit the application. Upon successful submission of an application, the application submitter, entity administrator, and authorized representative will receive an email from Just Grants confirming submission of the application. The Department of Justice has made a collection of self-guided training resources, including training and a virtual Q&A session on application submission, available at justisgrants.usdoj.gov/training-resources/grants-management-lifecycle. Applicants intending to apply for FY22 funding under this program are strongly encouraged to submit a letter of intent. The letter should state that the applicant is registered and current with SAM and grants.gov. The letter should be submitted to OVW at ovw.icjr@usdoj.gov by April 12, 2022. This letter will not obligate the applicant to submit an application. See www.justice.gov/OVW/resources-applicants for a sample letter of intent. Tips for a successful application. Read the solicitation in its entirety before applying. Follow the solicitation. Provide relevant, detailed information about the proposed project. The information presented in the application will be the only information used to review and score your application during OVW's peer review process. Use all available assistance in the process. Examples are OVW staff and TA providers. Pay close attention to the solicitation. Keep in mind application registration and submission dates. Do not wait until the last day to upload your application. Grant managers do not work 24/7. If you experience a problem after normal working hours, it could mean all of your hard work was for nothing. Ensure each section is completely addressed, even if it feels redundant. Be sure to include section headers. Number all your pages and limit the use of acronyms. Make sure you attach the final version of each document and check the upload to ensure it was successful. Upload each attachment and provide a simple, clear, and concise title. For example, FY 2022 Program Narrative, FY 2022 Budget Narrative, and so on. Do not title all documents Attachment, Final, or Document, or use incredibly long or vague titles. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit their application at least 36, but not less than 24 hours before the deadline. And after application submission, authorized organization representatives should closely monitor their emails for any notification from grants.gov about a possible failed submission. The AOR will receive a minimum of 2 emails from grants.gov. One will confirm receipt of the application package. The other will notify the AOR that the application was successfully submitted, or it will notify the AOR that there was an error with the application submission. The ICJR unit is comprised of program specialists or grant managers, Aisha Battle, Amanda Wilson, LaShonda Beasley, and Jason Petrie. LaShonda Beasley is the ICJR solicitation point of contact. Please contact her by email or phone if you have any questions regarding the solicitation or the ICJR program. Also listed here is the OVW website and OVW's phone number. If you need technical assistance with grants.gov, please contact the grants.gov application support line by emailing support@grants.gov or by calling 800-518-4726. If you need technical assistance with Just Grants, please contact OVW Just Grant Support by emailing ovw.justgrantsupport@usdoj.gov or by calling 866-655-4482. We will now answer questions that have been entered into the chat.
We are a local government, and the service area we would like to work in for this program includes parts of our county, as well as our entire service area as a city. As a local government, can we be the lead on the application, or because our service area for this program includes the county, will the county need to be the lead instead of a partner?
Thank you, Jason. So the answer to that question is depending on what is best for your jurisdiction. So defining who should be the lead applicant in that situation is not, it is up to you. It can either be the city who is partnering in it with the county, or it can be the county who is partnering with the city. The applicant just needs to be a unit of local government in your situation. And then it needs to include all relevant partners who will be implementing project activities.
Okay, next question. Seeking clarification, $20,000 must be set aside for training and technical assistance for the lead agency and an additional $20,000 for each project partner? That's the first question. And then, so if we had 2 partners, we'd allocate $60,000 for training and technical assistance.
I'm so glad you asked that question. The set aside that we are requiring for training and technical assistance is $20,000 total. It should include your partners being able to attend the training and technical assistance that is provided.
And next question, if your program touches on more than one priority area, do you get more than 1 point?
No, just 1 point.
Okay, next question. Is rent an allowable expense under this solicitation?
It is, so long as it is prorated to fit the expenses of the project. So an example would be if you are funding 1 FTE for an organization, but there are 4 FTEs in the office, you would only be able to allocate the rent for that office based on that 1 FTE. Some of our grantees have used square footage. Others have had different ways to prorate that cost, but that cost must be prorated to those who are involved in the grant activity, grant project.
Okay, next question. We are a victim services provider and intend to apply for purpose area number 22. We are collaborating with the state attorney's office. Can we be the lead on our application?
Great question. I'm going to pull in LaShonda to help answer that question.
For that one, it would be no. So for a victim service provider, you could only be the lead applicant for 5, 10, and 17. The state attorney's office is also not eligible to apply directly. You would have to go through a state, local, or local jurisdiction, or a tribal government, or a court. So the state attorney's office wouldn't be eligible to apply directly, but the victim service provider could do 5, 10, or 17. The local, state, jurisdiction, or county could apply for purpose area 22, and the victim service provider and state attorney's office can be a partner on that.
Next question. Just to confirm, no proposal can seek to fund any direct legal representation, even on immigration matters?
So for this one, as a result of the VAWA reauthorization, the direct legal representation has changed. So if you want to follow up with me, I can get, you can send a direct chat with me and I can get some additional clarification on that one from our attorney advisors.
Can the city and county apply for separate grants as separate local entities?
Yes, that's possible. If they have separate UEIs, they can apply separately and as separate local entities.
Okay. Our agency is a victim service provider who is currently implementing an ICJR program through the city, who is the local government / lead applicant. We would like to apply under this solicitation as the lead applicant with the local government unit as our partner. Would we apply as new or continuation?
That was a great question. You would apply as a new applicant in this case.
Next question. We are a division of our state attorney general's office and operate as the state agency administrator for our VOCA formula and VAWA stop grants. We've also received a variety of discretionary grants from OVC. For all of these applications and awards, our AG is the official to sign and approve. While we will be applying for a statewide project, it would be run solely out of the AG's office. The governor's office has no contact with or oversight of our office, but we still have to get the governor's signature on the certification of eligibility letter. Is that correct?
Yes, that answer is correct. It would have to be the governor's office for a statewide project.
Okay. Priority areas 1 and 4 state that they will have a requirement to work with training and technical assistance providers that specialize in working with culturally specific and underserved populations as part of the mandatory 1-year planning period. Does this mean we could not implement the actual project, i.e. hire a case manager, until that 1-year period is over?
No, that's a great question. That first year of a new award is designed to be a planning year. It is designed to allow for training and technical assistance related to improving your jurisdiction's response, a coordinated community response. It does not mean that hiring of that case manager must wait for an entire year. But that is something that you can discuss if your application is selected for an award with the grant manager to determine when would be the best time to move forward with that grant activity. LaShonda, do you want to add anything to that response?
You're correct. You can still look at hiring during that planning year and still talk with as Amanda said, with the grant manager on when those activities would begin for that case manager.
Okay, as a state coalition, if our project covers multiple purpose areas, which would include Area 5, but others as well, can we still apply as the lead applicant? Or would we need to have our project partner, which would be our state court administrator's office?
So if you're looking at applying for purpose area 5, 10, or 17, you would apply as the state coalition. If there are other purpose areas, then the state administrator's office may want to consider applying if it's additional purpose areas. Amanda, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, that's correct. For coalition, it is limited to those 3 purpose areas. Thank you for everyone for participating in today's FY22 new applicant, pre-applicant information session. Please email LaShonda Beasley at OVW, and you can use the ICJR at usdoj.gov website Jason just mentioned if you have any additional questions. Good luck with your applications.